Welcome, everybody, to Uncluttered and Unfiltered with Eden and Christine. And Christine is a professional organizer of Neatly Designed. That is her business. I am a broadcaster, and the reason I bring up the organizing is because while we don't necessarily have an organizing topic today, everything in our lives revolves around the fact that you and I are just so completely different, and everything you approach with a very systematic way, including our topic today, hobbies.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like, I've said this before, this is an old person's term, a flibberty-gibbet. I'm just like, ooh, what should I try next? So I don't know if I have one hobby or a million hobbies.
Right.
But that stands to reason based on our personalities, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. That just makes us why this works, because when we get into it, people will say.
Exactly. But before we even start talking about hobbies, and by hobbies, we're going to cover potential hobbies for Christine, who claims she has none, and your hobbies based on what you've been telling us in our social media outreaches, and some hobby suggestions I have for you.
Oh, I am so excited about this.
Good, I'm glad. But before that, news broke since our last recording session that ABC's The Golden Bachelor has been named. The Golden Bachelor is a senior citizen version of the Bachelor franchise, and Gary Turner is the Indiana, I think, millionaire at least.
Oh, really?
He looked well off is how they're presenting him.
Oh, okay.
And he is going to be the Bachelor, and then they have to select the women. I thought the promo they ran was really funny.
I thought it was great. First of all, he's 71 years old. He does not look like it at all. I mean, he is really taking care of himself.
He has, and there's a spray tan going.
Yes, absolutely. Good. He looks really good. The parts I liked in the promo were he loves an early bird special, which I think a lot of women over 50 can agree on.
Yep.
You got to love that early bird special.
Get in, get out.
He answers the phone. You know, I love that. I love that he answers his phone.
Yes.
And it's not gray hair, it's wisdom highlights.
Yes, he has wisdom highlights.
I mean, I think this is going to really be fun, don't you?
Yes, I'm not a fan of the Bachelor franchise. I did like it going in, but it kind of went off the rails, in which now it's like they all want to sleep with a guy.
Oh, I know. I know.
To me, that's a lot. I hope they're selecting true women with wisdom highlights as well.
Yes.
They can diet. I don't care about that. But I'm just saying they need to be of a certain age, because I don't want to see this guy with a bunch of 40-year-old little harlots.
Yeah.
Little spring chickens.
I think it'll be interesting to see what age group ABC has allotted. You know, he's 71. Is it going to be 50 and up? Is it going to be 45 and up? You know, I'm definitely going to be watching. Definitely.
I'm gonna watch too. And I think we should all watch together, even if it's as just to laugh about it the next day.
Oh, I agree.
Unless it totally offends, we'll start and we'll decide.
Yes.
But unless it totally offends, but if it is a bunch of ladies of a certain age looking to find love once again in their life.
Yes.
You know,
I'm all for it.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too.
Let's watch.
Let's
watch. All right, so that's not enough time during your week to call a hobby, though.
Right.
So let's get into it. You explain to us, and then we'll tell you what everybody says their hobbies are. But explain to us, Christine, what you mean when you say you don't think you have a hobby.
Well, you brought up this topic a few weeks ago, months now.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't have a hobby. And you said, what? I said, I really don't. And then I went home and I said to one of my daughters, do I have hobbies? And she's like, sure. I go, what are they? And she goes, well, and whenever anyone says that, you don't.
Right.
So not to say I haven't in the past. I used to needlepoint. I used to garden. There are things I used to do. I just don't really have hobbies anymore. Maybe it's because I'm working, and when I get home, I'm usually just relaxing, and my idea of relaxing may be different from somebody else's, but I really do not have a hobby.
Well, let's peek inside our audience right now. Just a few of the answers we got, because we had so many. Sandy likes jigsaw puzzles and baking.
Oh, baking could be a hobby.
A few of you said, yes, I also like jigsaw puzzles. Chastity says crafts of all sorts and looking for and drinking interesting wine.
Oh, now that would be interesting.
If that can
If I become like a wine connoisseur.
if that's a hobby, I might also have that hobby. Regina plays bridge.
Oh, that's a good hobby.
That
My
is a
mom
great
plays
hobby.
bridge.
Very social. She also runs.
Yes.
Sarah crochets, reads, makes lap quilts.
Oh, wow.
That's lovely. Pure Barre, reading, running, lots of exercise as hobbies, which is, of course, a healthy thing to do, but
Yes.
is of no interest to Christine.
You know,
Because you walk a lot.
I walk. Yeah, at my age, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to say, but I'm not starting a brand new exercise. I do Pilates, I walk, but I don't see that as a hobby. I see that as doing something for my health. So I guess that's where my mindset is different.
There's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
Holly says growing and propagating rare houseplants.
Oh my God.
That's so interesting. Like a Venus flytrap.
Oh,
What has she got going
yeah.
on there?
Wow.
Baking, making beaded jewelry, and ancestry. Now, that's also a fascinating hobby. A lot of people, ever since all of these kits have come out where you can really trace your roots, searching for shells on the beach at low tide is Abby's hobby. And that I know you do.
Yes. Well, we live at the beach, so we always bring them back and put them in a really beautiful glass jar I have on a shelf.
Home transformation, staging, painting, repurposing. A lot of you guys have said things of that ilk, things like renovating furniture.
I used to antique when I lived in Chicago. I was big into antiquing. I don't know. I think everything has like a phase in your life, They had good antique stores there, so I would just go look for hours.
Well, we are going to talk about why you have permission to not have a hobby. But before we do that, can we talk about some unusual, strange, and weird hobbies that are out there, as well as the one that I was going to suggest for you just to get your reaction? Remember, last week we talked about power slapping because I wanted to get your reaction because sometimes if you don't know something's out there, how can you know you don't like it?
Right.
Right? Okay. Collecting navel fluff. That's just ridiculous. Extreme ironing as a hobby.
I could see that, though. I know you find that weird, but I could see, I remember when I used to iron, I don't really iron that much anymore, mainly because my clothes aren't iron worthy, but there's something relaxing about ironing.
Painting rocks. Now, this is actually something kind of fun. I don't know if you know that in a lot of cities, there's a whole movement towards people will paint these rocks and leave them places.
They do that where I live.
Yeah. So that's a lovely hobby and something fun to do with the kids. I don't know how long that would keep my interest for, but
I think you have to be artsy.
I think you probably will excel at it if you're
Okay.
artsy. Yeah, I think you can write just some people just write a word.
Oh, okay.
Or
I
something
can do
like
that.
Beetle fighting. I don't think that's advisable at all.
No.
This is one from Girl Scouts. Soap carving. Soap.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And the one I landed, extreme couponing as a hobby.
A lot of people do that, though.
I wanted to land on noodling. And I asked you to please not Google noodling as a hobby. And noodling, I was briefly fascinated with this. I never tried it, nor would I ever. But I was fascinated, and I couldn't stop watching a few shows about noodling, which is where you use your feet or your hand as bait to catch giant catfish. You wade into swampy
I give up, everybody. I totally give up. I mean,
I was just trying to find the least likely thing for you, and to me, that was it.
when you asked me, I thought it was fighting with pool noodles. You know how there's styrofoam noodles and you would do like fights? That's what I thought that was.
Oh, I thought I was going to have you in the boat thinking it was pasta making.
Oh, no. I thought it was like pool noodles where you like have teams or something.
No, you wade into some kind of swamp.
God, I was all off on that.
Yeah, and you stick your hand into some hole and you hope that it bites, and then you pull out the catfish. And again, we're going to cross that off the list. So that leaves us with no hobbies for Christine. I'm going to go ahead and say that I would, if you can classify running as a hobby, that's mine. I mean, if I find myself with some free time, that's what I want to be doing.
Yes.
So let's talk about people who have no hobbies and why that's okay.
Okay. So here's the thing. It's funny that you brought this topic up because when I am being interviewed for a magazine or, a TV show and they send a form, they always say, what do you like to do on your off time, or what are your hobbies? And I always struggle with this because I really don't have a hobby. So what I did is find an article. It was from the Swaddle, and it's why it's okay not to have a hobby. And I read the whole thing and I'm like, I have found someone who understands me. And it starts off by saying what you like to do with your free time, or what are your hobbies. Saying you have no hobby at all, the mere lack of association with a special interest makes one seem dull at best and incompetent at worst. So it's a feeling you have if people say, what's your hobbies, or what are you doing on your off time? You're like, oh gosh,
What to say here?
like, what do I say?
Because they're usually trying to find a connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but what it is about having niche interests that makes someone a more advanced, successful human, it's reasonable to want to do multiple things with no particular commitment to any one, or even doing nothing at all, binge watching the same show for the sixth time, which that is me. I can watch The Sopranos. I mean, I've seen them probably 5 times over the years since the early 90s. That's something to me that I find really relaxing. Rewatching shows that I loved, you name it. Crime TV relaxes me. We've talked about that before in previous episodes. And it says it's okay not to have that one hobby you thoroughly enjoy, or that one skill you're going to master. I was so excited to see this because really, when you think about it, you're supposed to have at least one hobby.
Well, people expect that from you. But here's something, too, I want to put in your head. You have turned a hobby, a gift, a talent into a profession. So for you, you have that one thing. Like if somebody were to say, years ago, 15 years ago, before this was even a business for you, what is your hobby, or what is something you excel at, or what is a talent you have, you could say, because I do think it's more than just having a system in mind. There's something in your brain that makes you organized and makes you enjoy seeing a space come together. And to me, the fact that you do that every day for a living gives you permission to not have to have a hobby outside of that.
Thank you.
I truly believe that. I think that, 2 things are at play here. One is relaxing and watching a crime stopper show or one of these, mysteries. People don't call it a hobby, but it's not any less constructive than,
right.
No offense, because this is a great hobby, puzzling. I mean, it's just another way that you can disassociate yourself from the rigors of the day.
Right. And that's what this was. This was saying hobby by definition is something that people enjoy away from the humdrum of work life. The fundamental idea is that it allows for a certain amount of rest and recreation.
Which are the things that we all do. A glass of wine by a fireplace.
Yes.
It's serving the same purpose as needle pointing.
Right.
It really is.
I agree. I mean, I think it's really it's all about what relaxes you instead of trying to get better at something. Like, I'm not a real crafty person. Anyone that knows me knows I'm not really good at that part. So you think hobbies, you think, arts and crafts, beading, making something with your hands. I mean, I enjoy going to one of those pottery places and painting something, but it's already made and you're just painting it. You know what I mean?
And it's to serve that same purpose, to remove yourself from the realities of the day.
Right. Exactly.
To socialize, to have a good time. These are all the things people use their hobbies for, whether it be that you are playing pickleball with others or
right.
you are doing something all by yourself. It's to get the solitude or get the social interaction. And that's the reason you're doing it. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. And it qualifies as a hobby for sure.
I totally agree.
I have another hobby that you have that I think is a really good hobby that you have. You are very well read. There has not, to my knowledge, been a subject, and I'm not blowing smoke here, that I've brought up that you haven't had some insight on or within minutes researched. So you were telling me about an app you use, Flipboard. And so I installed it on my phone, and you basically tell it what kind of things you're interested in, and you can flip through and you can see news stories.
Yes, that's where I get a lot of information.
So I'll bet that there's a part of your day that you're spent, where some of us are scrolling TikTok. you're scrolling and you're reading lifestyle news,
Yes.
world news,
Yes.
crime news,
Everything.
everything. So that's the same kind of thing. You're not disassociating from reality so much as, but you're growing, you're learning,
Yes.
it's a hobby.
That I never thought of it that way. That is really true. I mean, I feel like when I'm learning something new about something people are always talking about, that to me, I enjoy doing, because I don't want to say, no, I don't know that, or I have not heard that, or, I like to be knowledgeable in what everybody's talking about, I guess.
So I think the word that people are hung up on is hobby.
Yes.
And I think a better way to frame hobby is, how are you spending the time that you are allowed each day to choose the activity you're going to do that does not require you to take care of somebody else,
Yes.
to work. It's time that you have allotted for yourself. And if you want to stare into a blank wall because that's what helps you reset, then that's your hobby.
Yes.
And it's just a word. Hobby is just a word.
Well, and that's why I loved that it says the stress of finding a hobby is linked to anxiety and even depression as people struggle to find meaning and purpose. The presumption that someone is boring if they don't have an interest to embellish or define their personalities also feeds into a cycle of insecurity. And I really do believe that. Not that it feeds into any kind of insecurity, but you almost feel like I should have a hobby. I should find an interest. So yes.
Particularly at this age, and here's what I am concerned with. We're all this far away from retirement. I mean, in a good situation, who knows how long, but within, much closer than we ever were before, let's just say. And so then it's always like, oh, well, what's your hobby? You're going to go fishing every day when you retire? You're going to play golf every day when you retire? What are you going to do all day when you retire? And I think that word hobby, that's where things start to get really scary if you think of yourself as someone who doesn't have one. But if you can reframe the way you're thinking about it and say, maybe my hobby is to try something new every day. Maybe my hobby is just to try to make someone's day better every day, or just all the time.
Also, I'm really a big believer in volunteering. And so when I'm not working, I'm trying to volunteer and do things for others in my community. So maybe that's my hobby also, is when I do have any free time, giving my time to somebody who really, really needs it instead of,
I covered a news story on you once. This is, for those who are just joining us for the first time, we met on TV. And I was covering a story you did, reorganizing a toy area in a homeless shelter.
Yes.
And that was something you did on a regular basis. I believe you're on the board.
Yeah, I was on the board.
Right. So these are the kind of things that you're filling your free time with.
Yeah.
And getting enjoyment and getting that sense of being needed.
Yes.
And so it checks all the boxes.
Which I think is important as you age. Everybody wants to feel needed. And if you don't feel needed, then you feel lonely. And your kids are up and grown and on their own life. And so I think, volunteering makes you not only feel happy, but feel needed by others. And I worked in the children's department. So, I mean, what can I say about that? I mean, that was just total.
Trying to create a home where there's none is difficult.
Yes. So I feel better already.
You should feel good. And anybody listening who is seeking their hobby should feel great as well, because we don't need a hobby. We just have to remind ourselves that we are enough.
Yes.
And that's the gist of everything we do here on this show.
And, being an individual, some people like some things, some people don't. Some people like mayonnaise, some people don't. It's just letting you be you and not doing the should thing. I should be doing that. I should be going out with these people. I should be friends with her. Whatever the should is, if it's not really in your heart and you don't really want to do it, I think that all boils down in all of this.
I like the phrase we learned several episodes ago about not shoulding all over yourself. Don't should all over yourself or others. So having said that, another hobby you could start, a podcast. You
Yes.
could start a podcast. That's a fun
This
hobby
is
to
my
have.
hobby.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're getting rich over here from it. So it is. It's a passion. It's a passion
Yes.
project that we love having you along for the ride on. And here are some ways you can feel like you have contributed. We would love it if you would leave a review, give us stars, subscribe so you're always notified for a new episode. These reviews, these stars, they seem like they're just to give us feedback, and they are. They truly are. But what they also do is help others find us.
Yes.
And that's what we want to do. Also, if you are enjoying the podcast, reach out to a friend that think about who is your friend that lives the furthest away from you and call that person tonight or
Yeah.
text them and tell them about our podcast.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would
And then,
be so fun.
of course, I know this is Chris's favorite, our ladies only Facebook group, Uncluttered and Unfiltered,
Yes.
ladies only, private group. You have to be approved to get in, but everybody gets in as long as they are a lady over 50 or close to.
Yes.
We have a lot of fun in there. We get a lot of inspiration for our podcast subject matter, and we sometimes will ask you guys questions because we just frankly don't know the answer.
Yes. Yeah, I just thoroughly enjoy this group. I just feel we've really made a community in such a short period of time.
It really puts into action that phrase we coined in episode 1, which is you found your people.
Yes, I agree. I just love hearing I love reading what other people think about things because, you know what you think. So it's so enjoyable to me to see what other people think about the questions that we put out there.
And if you log on right now, you can scroll down. It might take a little scrolling, but we do ask you if you're planning to watch Golden Bachelor with us. So let's see if you are interested, and we'll give that a try when it comes up in the fall. But in the meantime, remember, with all things, including the stress over finding a hobby, you can't let it go.
And don't look back.